Hi, I'm Calivan and welcome to Bar Better. This series is for new players and should help you get to grips with the mechanics of actually playing multiplayer games. A couple of episodes back we took a look at the second most popular map, so today we're going to move up a position and look at the most popular. It's called Supreme Isthmus, and chances are it'll be one of your first experiences if you decide to try the 8v8 multiplayer lobbies. You may have seen a similar map in other games. It's based on the iconic Satan's Clutch from Supreme Commander and has inspired plenty of other maps. You can pretty much figure out the basics by taking a quick glance at the overview. Two teams, one on each continent, separated by water with a narrow land bridge joining them in the centre. One of the reasons it's so popular is it supports a lot of different types of engagements that are all mutually supporting and have wide-reaching effects on the rest of the battle. Controlling the seas allow you to strike at the players on the connected beaches as well as put pressure on the front line and open up lanes of amphibious attack. Controlling the land bridge provides a lot of early metal, and getting units past your opponent's defences allows harassment of the often vulnerable economy of the sea positions. There's also a couple of islands to fight over and plenty of opportunities to upset your opponents with raiding. The map is symmetrical, with both teams having the same defensive features and resources available, but in different places. This creates a battle where the team that supports each other well will often come out on top, while the one that treats it as a series of unrelated mirror matches will not. It's not perfect and it's not to everyone's taste, but it is very popular. Perhaps a little too popular, it's a touch overplayed, but that's just an unfortunate side effect of quality. The problem in going into a greater level of detail is that the exact roles and positions have a tendency to evolve over time. This is referred to as the meta, and although I think it's reasonably stable and has been for a while, these things can do and will change. So check the date of this video. If it was uploaded a few months back and it's your first time on this map, don't be afraid to ask your teammates at the start of a game what your role is in any one particular position. I'm going to split this up into three categories: frontline, sea and backline. So let's look at the front. The front line consists of four positions, the two closest to the land bridge and the two directly behind them. Positions 4 and 7 are generally referred to as pond and geo respectively. I'm not quite sure what terms people use for positions 5 and 6, so we're just going to call them short front and long front. Although all of these positions have a primary responsibility to hold the line, their exact role in that plan does vary. Short and long front are expected to get units out very quickly and push out to contest all that metal that sits in the middle of the map. There are some high yield spots there as well as a fair number of reclaimable rocks. They hold the line and prevent the enemies from passing the middle, while at the same time trying to slip a few of their own units past to attack the unprotected economic structures further behind the front line. Pond's job is to make sure that both short and long front get off to a flying start. Rather than open with a regular build, this player generally spawns in the small patch of water and builds a total of 8 tidal generators, trading forward to each of the two players at the very front, something commonly known as boosting. This means that those two players don't have to build their own early energy economy and can go straight into units after securing their metal spots. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a dumb situation. Both teams will inevitably do this, and as such these boosts will effectively cancel each other out. But because the enemy team will do it, you'll have to do it too, or you'll be behind. After boosting the front line with tidals, the pond player will then go on to secure his metal spots and build as normal. The geo player isn't expected to build any T1 units, but instead to take advantage of the geothermal vent to get a T2 lab up as quickly as possible and supply a few powerful units to the front. This gives the frontline players enough power to hold the line and firm up their own positions, allowing the geo player to upgrade their metal extractors and develop a stronger economy of their own, so they're ready to produce more powerful units in the near future. The trick to the short and long frontline positions is to be very aggressive in the opening minutes of the game to secure as much metal and ground as possible. If the opposing team's geo player is able to provide T2 units faster than your geo player, you'll have plenty of units on the field and be able to trade space for time until you can get the backup you need. If you instead decide to play passively, perhaps relying on a lot of T1 defences near the centre of the land bridge, then you'll run the risk of being overrun if this happens. Most T2 units, even in small numbers, have the power and range to absolutely decimate T1 defences and units with a near absolute impunity. If your Geo player does manage to provide T2 support before your opposing team's Geo player, then an aggressive posture can really capitalise on this. Chances are you'll already be quite close to your enemy's bases. They will not be able to trade space for time, and you may find that you can crush their economy before they can form a suitable defence. This leaves a big gap in the line and forces other players to respond, and every scrap of metal and energy that they spend on this task is metal and energy they're not using to scale their own economies. In the front positions, you want to keep things pretty simple. You definitely don't want to be too greedy. Get your metal extractors up first and then get a lab down quick. If everything is going fine, then the boosting player will sort you out 4 tidal generators or equivalent. This will give you enough energy early on in the game that you don't have to build any wind or solar to get going. Now the enemy will try and flank you as quickly as possible, so you don't want to sit back and make a load of constructors and go for a slow opener. You want to get some units out straight away and make sure you're covering the front. If you're in this position especially, the enemy will definitely try and sneak a few scouts past you on the side here. So send your first scouts out to intercept them straight away. After that, you can get a constructor out to give yourself some more build power and then move your scouts up to the front to get yourself some vision. Once your first constructor's out, don't hang around, just get your commander moving near the front and queue up some light units of your own. You can get these extra metal spots here. If you're finding yourself a bit low on energy, then just pop an extra solar collector or something on your walk up, because you'll probably have plenty of metal this early on, so don't be afraid to use some on an extra solar collector or 2. Once you've got 5 light units up, you can get another construction bot out. And then I like to go for a single Centurion before another construction bot, something to give me a decent amount of firepower and health at the front. This will allow me to pick on my enemy's light units if they've committed to pawns or grunts in any number, and also will hold up pretty well against any other units if repaired by your commander. Try and encourage your teammate to move up to the same sort of position you'll probably be holding here. Ideally, you want to be able to hold a line somewhere near here to deny this metal spot from your enemy, and that will give your team a slight advantage. And try and encourage your teammate to push up to a similar kind of line rather than sort of hold back. And then after you've got another constructor out, I would probably get something like a Lazarus and then just start building combat units big time. And then you can use one of your constructors to get some energy generation on the go. You don't need a huge amount, but you should definitely queue up some, because you're going to need it, as the amount of metal you get coming in will be pretty decent after a bit, especially once you get this extra metal extractor captured and once your Lazarus comes up to the front line. What you want to try and do, if the enemy's got quite a few units, you want to try and harass them and sort of try and pull those units towards the middle of the map. And then if you've got any light units left, you want to try and threaten to run past them. You don't actually have to run past them, but it's good to look like you're going to, or to threaten them. That will stop the enemy pushing up too hard, because they'll be worried if they push up too hard, then you'll quickly flank them and get behind them and do loads of damage to their base. And if they do make a mistake and you do get the opportunity to do that, then definitely do that. And then just keep bringing up units. I don't like making loads of fixed defences in the middle of the map here. I think that's probably a bad idea, because T2 units will come out really quickly and those defences won't hold up to much. It's definitely worth building a couple of light laser towers, because they'll give you a bit of extra firepower with your units, but I wouldn't commit too hard on that, and I definitely wouldn't get loads of gauntlets and heavy laser towers and things up. The most I'll normally go for is a single heavy laser tower. If you think you need something heavier than that, it probably means you're on the back foot anyway, and you should probably have a rethink or ask your team for a bit of help. So in the Geo position, it's all about the greed. So we're going to open up with a couple of metal extractors, then we're going to get 4 wind turbines up, and then we're going to put a bot lab down, and we're going to do it near these trees because we're going to grab these for extra energy. The idea is we're going to use Lazarus to reclaim energy early to get a Geo plant up quick, and then use the energy from that to give us a big kickstart. So we're going to open with a Lazarus, then we're going to build a construction bot, and then 2 more Lazarus, and then 1 more construction bot. And we're going to use our commander to boost it out. And then once we've run out of energy from boosting, we're going to walk our commander down and start eating up some trees to give us some more energy, and this Lazarus is going to do the same. And then once we get near the cap of energy, our commander is going to pour that energy straight into the next unit on our bot lab. This is going to mean we get our bots out nice and quickly. And this first bot we're going to send up and we're going to start building our first metal extractor. Then we're going to get 2 more Lazarus out and get these immediately eating trees. Although we're going to split between these 2 batches here just so they don't run out too quick. And our commander's going to keep eating. And the second our energy gets to the top, put it straight back into one of our units to get that out nice and quick. And then we're going to get an energy storage up, because what we want to do is save up a load of this energy and then we can burn through it pretty quickly when we're making our geothermal plant. Now, this construction bot isn't for us. We're going to give that to our C player, who will probably need it. They might pay us for that would be nice, but even if they don't, we're still going to give them the construction bot because they need it more than we need 110 metal or whatever it is. So we're going to self-destruct this just to represent us trading it away to them and send it down. And then we're just going to keep eating things until our energy storage is nice and full. And then we're going to send our commander up and he's going to build this geothermal. We're going to start it with the construction bot. Then the construction bot is going to move over and secure this metal spot while the commander finishes it off, because he's got loads and loads of build power, so it'll come up in, I don't know, 40 seconds or something. We use one of our Lazarus to eat up our bot lab because we could do with the metal back, and the rest of them are just going to keep on eating trees to get as much energy coming in as possible. As you can see, we're using 307 but only earning 160 to 200. So we need to rely on our surplus that we stored up in this energy storage for this, which we're going to do. I've self-destructed one Lazarus because out of the 3 we built, I also trade one to our C player down here. Now, like I said, he might pay us for it, he might not, but he definitely needs one, so we're going to do that anyway. So that leaves us with 2 Lazarus on the field, a construction bot and our commander. That'll get our geothermal plant up about 3 minutes and, 15 seconds in the game. If you've got a bit of a better plan than this and you're a bit quicker, you can definitely beat that speed, but that's the speed I've got on this run through. Now our commander's going to get up 4 energy converters because we'll be overflowing energy for a bit and we don't want to waste that, so we might as well have +4 metal rather than just throwing the energy away. And then he's going to go into a vehicle lab, because as ARM, I think the best thing we can do to support our frontline early is with some Mausers. They are cheap, they have very long range and do decent damage, and I think that will make the most impact very early on the front line. Our Lazarus are going to keep eating trees, although this one's going to scoop up the little bits of metal that are on our side of the shore there. Then we're going to get our vehicle plant up. Speed this up a little bit. So we'll get a construction vehicle out because we'll need that for our building, and it's going to immediately go and start making a advanced vehicle plant. And we're going to do it over here because when we upgrade this to an advanced geothermal, this means it's outside of the explosion radius. So if we have some sort of mishap, we don't lose everything, only lots of things. And sometimes that's enough. Now what we could do at this point is we could build a construction turret or 2 and then self-destruct our commander to get all of the metal he's worth, and then that will get us through this next step a bit quicker. I've chosen not to do this on this run. This is because this build is for new players and I think safety is probably a good idea. There could be hovercraft or amphibious units coming out of the sea to attack you about this point in the game, and if you don't have a commander you're completely defenseless and it might completely lose you the game right at this stage, so we're going to keep him alive. It will slow us down, but it is safe, so we'll go for that for this time. And our first Mauser should roll off the production line before the 6-minute mark. It will take us a bit longer to get the next 3 because we're not earning a huge amount of metal, we're only earning 13 or 14 here depending on energy wise. But we'll send these up to the front line and we'll get them doing some good work. And because we didn't self-destruct our commander, we can use his build power. He's got 300 build power, which is the same as 4 construction bots or a turret and a half, so we don't need to build any turrets at this stage because the commander's got loads. But if we did self-destruct him, we'd have to replace that build power with turrets or similar. So now we've got our 4 Mausers off, we're going to build an advanced construction vehicle for ourselves. The Mausers will start hitting the front line around 7 minutes and they can step back, keep them safe and just use them to completely destroy all the T1 units they can. Either help defend the front line or maybe help a push, depending on whatever the front line needs. If you've got particularly competent frontline players, you might want to trade them these and let them do the best they can with them. That's up to you. There's not too much to do in the base, so you can often do it yourself. Once our construction vehicle is out, we're going to upgrade a couple of metal extractors, and then we're going to upgrade our geothermal. Again, we could make this a bit faster. We could build a metal storage, we could reclaim our advanced vehicle plant, and that will give us more metal to upgrade this quicker. But the problem with that is it's not a very safe play, because if we suddenly need to produce some fast units to plug some leaks, maybe some Jaguars or something like that, we don't have that option. So as we're going the safe way this time, we're not going to reclaim it this time, we're just going to leave it idle for a little bit. Now, I'm not quite sure the best way to do this. Some people build the geothermal plant first, some people build all the metal extractors first. I find it's best to build a couple of metal extractors first, and then the geothermal plant, and then the next two metal extractors. My commander's going to build some extra energy converters to get ready to use some of this extra energy that's going to come out, and that will mean that we won't be throwing it all away and we'll be getting a bit more metal income. And that means as we come up to the 11th minute, we'll be in a state where we can start pumping out some more units. So essentially, the front line has to hold for 3 or 4 minutes with the Mausers you've given them to give you a chance to do enough eco to get some more units out to support them properly. And by this time, you'll have a decent amount of metal in the bank, you'll have things upgraded, not bad income, and then you can start producing some starlights or something heavier to help them out. Starlights are pretty good at this stage of the game because the advanced geothermal gives you enough energy to actually make and use them, although depending what you might need ambassadors or Mausers or maybe some Jaguars or Bulls. There's plenty of good options. What I like to do after my Mausers is get 4 starlights out, or 5 starlights, and then a radar jammer and a prophet to give them some nice cover. Sometimes I get those out earlier to give the Mausers a hand, sometimes I don't. It depends if my front line's built any radar jammers on the front or not. I've got a couple of extra construction turrets up now because my metal's starting to pile up and I need more build power. And my commander's helping this boost. We've got loads of build power. And then at the same time, I'm just finishing off these metal extractors. Note that earlier on when I did have a vehicle lab up, I did build a mine layer as well. I like to have a mine layer just hanging around in case I need him. And what I'll do a bit later in the game is I normally cover these sort of fronts of the beach with some mines. They won't completely stop a push, but they can really take the edge off it, and it can really muck up a commander doing comm walks. It's great against people using scuttles and amphibious bombs and things like that. And mines are really cheap. I'm just putting down a load of medium mines here. I think that's a good use of the mine layer. So now I've got my last starlight rolling out. It's time for my next little bit of eco. So again, I'm going to pause sending units to the front line for a little bit unless they desperately need them, and just focus on my own economy for a little bit. What that'll be is my commander will get a load more energy converters up while I build myself a fusion reactor to get some more energy. Let's skip forward a bit until that's complete. Now once that's done, what I like to do is I like to downgrade my advanced geo to a prude, because it's very easy to kill these. They don't have much health at all. And when they go, everything dies. Any units you had here, all your metal extractors, your converters, the whole lot explodes. And even though my advanced vehicle plant and my construction turrets are safe, it's still not what you want to happen. If you select it in the build menu and hold space, you can see that red circle represents the explosion radius. So here it would kill 3 of my metal extractors and all my converters and any units that happen to be there. Not ideal. So I like to downgrade that to a prude. Obviously it gives me 500 less energy. It's 750 compared to 1125, but it means that I can start using this part of my base without having this massive self-destruct button just sitting in the middle of it. When you upgrade a structure, it costs metal, but as you'll see, when you complete it, you get the metal that the original structure costs back. You don't normally notice it so much with metal extractors because they only cost 50, but if you do notice when you finish an advanced metal extractor, you get a tiny little boost in metal. That's because you're getting a refund from the original extractor. And it's the same with the prude. So when we build the prude, it costs us 1,150 to build, but we'll get the 1,600 back from the advanced geo. So we can use that metal to go straight into our next fusion reactor. This gives us a half decent amount of economy, and then we can use that to start pushing more units to the front line. Obviously the actual timings we choose here is really going to be dependent on what our front line needs. If the front line's pretty stagnant, then we'll spend a bit more time on the eco. If our front line's pushing really hard and they just need a bit more to get over the line, or maybe they're on the back foot and they really need support, we'll obviously do a bit less eco and produce a lot more units. And then once we get to this point, it's pretty much up to you to decide what you need based on what's going on the map and how's sea going and everything else. In the pond position, the most consistent way to boost your 2 frontline players is to build tidal generators. Essentially, you build a tidal generator, then you double click the trade button to send it to one of your frontline players, and you just sort of alternate and go through each one as soon as you've built it, or even when it starts being built. Just click the thing and then double click to trade it, and do that until you've given them each 4 tidal generators. Not really much else to think about at this point. The only other thing I like to do is build 2 tidal generators for myself at the end, just because it means I don't have to worry about getting some energy up later. Tidal power is pretty efficient and very consistent, especially on this map, so I think that's probably the best way to go. So after that, you want to go and get your metal extractors up. Grab these 3 here, and then go and grab the last one. There's not really much more to say about this, you just got to sit there and do it. And then you'll probably want a bot lab over here, which will be no problem if you built yourself a couple of tidal generators earlier. Oh, I think we can speed this up. Let's speed that up. Lovely. After this, I like to get a Lazarus or 2 out because it's nice to have some extra energy and reclaim. If no one has reclaimed these rocks over here, I like to grab them and also grab the energy. And then I'll probably start building some wind turbines with my commander because I will be pretty low on power at this point. And then I'll get myself a construction bot out as well. And then at this point in the game, you need to get a feel for how your front line's going, as it's going to dictate your next moves. If your front line's not doing too well, then you're probably going to need to support them straight away. So if it looks like your enemy are completely pushing them back to here already and they're really starting to struggle, you don't really have a lot of choice other than to start producing units yourself. So essentially what you'll be doing is just producing units to help the front line, and once your tech player has traded you a T2 construction bot, you can then upgrade your metal extractors and start working on your own economy proper. If your front line is doing pretty well, then I think it's probably better to go straight to T2 rather than bringing out any T1 units. So what I normally do is get a bot out to start working on an advanced bot lab straight away, and I'll get my commander to make some more energy. And then what I'll do is just focus on getting this bot lab up. I'll reclaim my T1 bot lab with one of my Lazaruses, and then once this bot lab's up, I'll get some construction types out and start bringing out T2 units straight away. The 2 sea positions are generally referred to as Geo Sea and Beach Sea. They are asymmetrically mirrored, so one team's Geo Sea is opposite the other team's Beach Sea, and vice versa. This is an interesting matchup, as in many respects the Geo Sea is at a significant advantage. These advantages come in 3 forms: resources, geography, and access. The geothermal vent is a huge bonus. It provides as much power as 15 tidal generators at 40% of the price. Upgrading it to advanced provides 25% more power than a fusion generator at a third of the price. This position also has 6 metal extractors on land compared to the beach position's 4, so a gift of an early T2 constructor from the tech player is 50% more effective. These benefits alone provide the Geo player with the 2 pillars required to rapidly develop their economy: metal and energy. The Geo player also has the space required to further develop their land-based economy safely away from the reach of everything with a flagship. The beach player has no such luxury. The Geo player also has access to a cove that makes a very defensible position, one that can easily be reinforced with ground-based torpedo launchers and artillery. This can prevent the beach player from hanging around to reclaim the wrecks even if they do manage to successfully destroy ships and shipyards in their area. Not only is it a safer place to build, it's a good place to retreat to if a fight starts to go badly. The Geo Sea player can use all of these advantages to best their opponent, and when they do, they have amazing access to the enemy team's bases. Even without the mighty flagship, long-range missile ships can decimate the bases of those on the connected beaches and create an easy opening for amphibious attacks. The one advantage that the Beach Sea player has is the distance to the sea. With the right opener, it is possible to rush out some fast attack boats and prevent the sea player from getting established. Unfortunately, this advantage doesn't normally last long. Even if you can continually deny a shipyard, the massive economic bonus of the Geo position can allow them to use a large amount of hovercraft or other amphibious units to take back the sea a few minutes down the line. Now, if you're in the Geo position, the trick is to make sure you make full use of all of the advantages available to you. A well-planned and well-rehearsed opener will make a huge difference, so don't squander those gifts. When you're in the beach position, you've got but one card up your sleeve. It might not feel like much of a consolation prize, but your teammate in the Geo Sea position has all of the advantages that you don't. He'll hopefully be fine, which means your other teammates, most notably Tech and Air, will hopefully be able to assist you. This changes the game. Your objective isn't necessarily to win, but to hold out for as long as possible. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to win, but it does mean that you need to continually and carefully evaluate the positions of both you and your opponent. And if it becomes clear that your chances of winning are almost nil, then you essentially need to play for time. As long as you remain a threat, it's difficult for your opponent to focus all of their efforts on developing their economy. They can't strike at your team's long or geo front positions, and it's harder for them to sneak amphibious units onto your beach. All that being said, there is one massive consideration for any sea player that overshadows all other advantages and disadvantages. Ships are very metal expensive, and they leave a lot of this behind when they die. Whenever you're approaching a sea engagement, you have to ask not just if you're going to trade favourably, but if you're going to remain in control of the area when the fight concludes. If the answer to this is no, then don't take the fight. Even a small, inconclusive battle can leave thousands of metal on the sea floor, and the overall victor will most likely be the player who can reclaim or resurrect all of those ships. Now, I'm not really much of a sea player, so I can't give you a massive amount of help in this position, but I'll show you a couple of the very basics. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and take advantage of all of the things we've got going for us as much as we can and as quickly as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to build our metal extractors nice and quick, and then we're going to get some energy up, just like normal. What we're going to do is build an extra 2 wind generators, and then we're going to trade them to our air player, and in return we're going to ask for a scout plane and a light transport. The wind's a good way to pay because it helps the air player out a lot, and we'll get a light transport for that, and maybe a scout too that we can go and have a look round, see what our opponent's up to. Now, I self-destructed those turbines because I can't trade them because it's an AI game and there's no one else, but that simulates me building and trading them. And then the wind's a bit rubbish, so I decided to get a couple of soda collectors up, and at the same time we're opening up with a Lazarus. Now, we want to use Lazarus because they're going to eat loads of trees and give us loads of energy. It means that we're not reliant on the wind. Once we've got a couple of Lazaruses out, we're going to get a construction bot out, and we're also going to get an energy storage out so we can store up all this energy our Lazaruses are going to be collecting. Then we're going to start off a construction turret with our bot, and then we're going to pick the bot up and we're going to send it over here and build our shipyard while our commander finishes the construction turret. Then the plane can come back, pick the turret up, put that over there by the shipyard, and that will mean our shipyard completes nice and quickly and has a decent amount of build power for building our early ships. At the same time, we're going to build a pawn just in case they send a light hovercraft or 2 to come and attack us. And then we're going to use our transport to carry our bot round to get our metal extractors up without them having to walk really slowly. We can then use our transport again to grab this bot, start off this geothermal plant, and we should be able to get this up pretty quick because we've got all of this energy saved up in our energy storage and more coming in from all of our Lazarus. And then what we can do is, if the island's clear, we can take our construction bot over to the island, and we can build ourselves maybe a couple of air defense turrets and then get some metal extractors up. Hopefully that will keep that safe for a while. While all this is happening, we'll just be building ships. I've got ARM on this playthrough, but I think Core is the more popular options when it comes to ships. I quite like Dolphins. I think they're really handy at the start of the game, and obviously if you're Core you don't get that, but apparently the Core ships are a bit stronger. I don't really know, I don't really play this position too often. But once you've got yourself your construction ship and your metal extractors, get yourself a radar up, keep pumping out ships. Make sure to get some energy converters up so that all this energy isn't being thrown away, and then you can just take it from there. Remember to build a few light defences on this island. I like to put a few dragon's teeth down to make it a little bit harder for the enemy to build turrets and stuff in these little dip positions from the seaside, and then that should get you off to a good start. Now, like I said, I'm not really much of a sea player, so I can't give you too much help in these positions. But what I tend to do if I get lumped in this spot is to try and be as annoying as possible. What I mean by that is I try and pick at all of the advantages my opponent has in order to delay him. If my opponent is way below my skill level, it probably means I'll win the sea. If they're average or above me, they'll still win, but it might take them a lot longer. That buys my team a lot more time to get further into the game and support me. If you fold in the first 10 minutes, that's really bad and there's not much anyone else can do to help you. But if you fold after 20 or 25 minutes, then there's a good chance you'll see some torpedo bombers or maybe some platypus or something like that from tech and air. So it's important to stay alive as long as possible. So like I said, try to be annoying. Contest all of the things that your opponent wants to do easily and force them to spend more resources and time into doing so. So what I like to do is to get a hovercraft lab up early, and then the first thing I'll make is a couple of fast scouts, and rather than just try and raid him with them, because that doesn't always work, I'll just go and pop them on the island. What they like to do is bring over a construction bot and drop it down here with an aircraft, or sometimes they like to drive a construction or amphibious or hovercraft vehicle onto the beach. If you've got 2 scouts on the island, that completely shuts that down. Now, they can send their commander, and you can't contest that, but if their commander's on the island, he's not elsewhere with his massive amount of build power doing really useful things to them. And then after that, I'll send a construction hovercraft of my own to come and build up defences a little bit. Remember that construction hovercraft have got way more build power than bots, so if you are in a constructor versus constructor matchup, you can get up turrets a lot quicker. After that, I'll build another 2 construction hovercraft. One of them will secure the metal here, one of them will secure my metal over here, and I'll buy a Lazarus off my Geo player and use that to reclaim the hovercraft platform, because we only want that just to open up, we don't want to go into hovercraft big time. And then my commander will come over and get a lab up, and then kind of play normally after that. I'll get a couple of titles up just to make sure I've got a bit of energy, and then the first thing I'll probably produce is a sub. Not because I'm dedicated to playing submarines, but if your opponent thinks you're going subs, they might build a lot of counters, and that costs them resources and means they're not spending them on other things. So I'll get a single sub out and I'll send that across the map over to here and probably scout in case they are building a shipyard here, which they don't often do but does occasionally happen. After that, I'll set up a little queue of 1 herring, 3 assault frigates and a destroyer and just continually build that. I think that's quite a nice force mix. You can deal with everything quite well and you're pretty well prepared for that. After I've got this metal extractor built, I will build a single guard over here in case my opponent tries to drop off something or send a couple of hovercraft up there. It won't be a big push, and if it's only a unit or 3, a guard will shut that down quite nicely. And then I'll try and secure as much metal as I can while building units. If my opponent's really quick over here and comes out with a massive units really quickly, I'll just sort of play to time a bit, do some damage, back off a bit, repair, do some damage, back off a bit. I won't take a huge fight because I don't want them to win and have loads of reclaim. The chances are that they'll be spending a lot of their early build power and time on shoring up their economy, so they probably won't come out of the gate with anything too strong. And then I'll make sure I've got plenty of radar towers up. I like to get one here, so I've got sonar coverage in this area, and another one here, gives me loads of coverage. And then what I'll do is I'll send my last construction hovercraft over here, and I'll build a single light laser tower over here. It might kill their Geo, it might not, but what it will make them do is worry about their Geo. They'll then spend loads of time and resources on reinforcing all this island with far too many things that they don't really need. And everything they spend on something on this island is stuff they're not spending on ships. And then after that, I will leave my submarine here, because once they can't secure the island with a bot, what they'll probably do is walk their commander over here to try and take it. Now, because commanders can cloak and have a D gun, it's quite easy to get through defences that would stop hovercraft. But if you've got a submarine in the way, hopefully the commander will take a load of damage from the submarine. If he's a bit timid, he might turn back. If not, he might kill the submarine. But either way, that's going to leave him pretty weak. And if he comes onto the beach pretty weak, even when cloaked, you might find that a few turrets will actually kill him. Especially if you do something cheeky, like put a stealth camera here, so they inadvertently walk into it and reveal themselves, and then all the laser turrets open up. And it's good to do little things like this, because they don't know if each one of these is a dragon's tooth or a dragon's maw. After that's done, what I'll do, these 2 scouts that were there earlier, I'll just send them onto the beach. Now, if they've reinforced the beach, this will do nothing. If they've got a couple of things out, I might kill a metal extractor or 2. I won't do too much damage, but it's going to make them worry about the beach. That means they're going to reinforce this, they're going to reinforce this, they're going to try and retake this, they're going to worry about submarines and probably build a couple of torpedo launchers. And every scrap of metal and energy they put into that is metal and energy they're not spending on ships. And then if things do go badly, hopefully I've bought enough time that someone else on my team will be able to help. I'm going to gloss over the tech and air positions on this map, as I've already covered those roles in a previous video. However, I will take a couple of minutes to highlight a few noteworthy differences. The first of which is that the average wind speed is pretty good and you've got lots of space to work with. This means that it's not so important to get a fast fusion reactor. Instead, you can use big batches of wind turbines to satisfy your early energy requirements. I recommend building yourself a bunch of butlers to build long lines of wind turbines 2 columns wide. There's easily room to fit 300 or 400 of these in, providing similar levels of energy to several fusion reactors. Combine this with big wedges of basic energy converters and this can give you a pretty strong economy and allow an easy transition into fusions and advanced fusions later. The other interesting feature is that the large seas provide a lot of raiding potential. You can use amphibious units, hovercraft or air to attack vital points along the enemy coast. If done early enough, it can really set your opponents back a long way and take a lot of pressure off your teammates. It doesn't have to be a dedicated all-in attack, but it's often worth diverting a little bit of your economic power away from growth and into these raids. It can be tempting to focus on nothing other than scaling lest you suffer in the late game, but these small raids will often put you ahead. They force the enemy to react with fast but normally inefficient counters, slowing down their own economic growth. This also applies to the air player. There's quite a lot of targets near to the coast that are quite easy to hit, such as the geothermal vents and also enemy shipping. Building bombers will slow your own economy, but the enemy air player will have to build more fighters to cover all of these fronts, slowing down their own economic growth. Okay, I think that'll do for this video. If you found any of this useful, then leave me a like, and if you've got any questions, then pop them in a comment or on the Discord and I'll do my best to respond. And as usual, if you want more of this sort of thing, then subscribe to my channel and I hope to see you back for the next one.